Hey Painkiller, how you doing? Smoking Ronnie. I'm just plugging my mic in. If you guys hear any feedback, let me know and I'll disconnect it. Sometimes it behaves, sometimes it doesn't. Alright, I think we are reconnected. Can you guys hear me okay? John Walker, how you doing? Smurfinelli, evening all. I don't know if I'm just being paranoid, but whenever I come close to having my internet provider contract renewed, the reception and the connection seems to get really choppy. And they've been trying to get me to sign up for another 2 years. And I said to them, I'm gonna think about it, see what else is out there on the market. They gave me a quote, and I said I'm looking to reduce my cost, because when I first took on this contract, it was quite kind of new to have this high sort of quality broadband, and so I paid a little bit over the odds for it, but now everybody's offering it at virtually half the money, so that's what I'm looking at the moment. So earlier on, I did a video. I don't know if you guys saw it. I did a short video. I was smoking this pipe, which I'm still in the middle of, my Scotty, with some London Fog, my second bowl of London Fog this evening. But I said I would try High Newton. I said that I would try some of the old Codger blends for Ben, the Artful Codger. So a while back, Shalom Hector, a while back, I smoked some of this whilst Ben was on the live, and he was kind of guiding me how best to smoke it. I think it was okay at the time, but I said I would smoke it again tonight. Hey Joe, good evening. Where is my tobacco tray? This seems to be a never-ending quest to find my tobacco tray. There it is. Good evening, Robert Dawson. So we're going to give this Velvet another go. As soon as you open the pouch, you get that sort of very typical American style sweet casing, which I'm not a big fan of, but I'm going to give it another go. Hey Joshua. Holiday blends, interesting. I've never been a big fan for holiday blends, I must admit. No, not H&H. I said I would give this Velvet a retry tonight, so that's what I'm doing. I've never really been I've never really understood. I mean, I assume it's just a marketing thing, the whole holiday blend situation. I can understand if at Christmas time somebody brings out an aromatic blend which reminds you of a Christmas aromas, like a Christmas pudding and that kind of thing. I can understand that, but most of them don't. The last one, I think from was it Samuel Gowerth or Peterson? It was Peterson. I think it was 2017 or 2018. It was a straight sort of English style tobacco. I think it was little roundels, little curlies, or whatever you call them, little coins, and it was a very straight sort of. I think it was a vapor, possibly. I don't remember, yeah, I did say that I would smoke Velvet and half and half, but I can't find my half and half pouch. I think I may have gifted it away to somebody else who wanted to try it. So I've looked in all of my Tupperdoors and I couldn't find it. So I'm gonna have to settle with the Velvet. And I thought maybe after that I might try some Amphora Full Aroma. I haven't smoked it for a long time, and when I first discovered this blend, I smoked it a lot. Went through quite a few pouches of it. So, but it's also very sort of similar, maybe not the same casings, but high Pascal, but quite a similar type of idea to the Velvet. It's I imagine there's burleys in there. Well, inspired by the sweetness of Virginia leaf. So what does it say here? Full-bodied blend with a hint of fruit, blossom, subtle vanilla undertones, complements the subtle chocolatey burley, while the Kentucky Oriental and Virginia grade leaves combine for a fruity aroma and a well-rounded smoke. Well, it certainly describes a lot better than it tastes, although I do like that, but it's been a while. Yeah, Hector, that's I'm not really gotten into that whole spirit of holiday blends. To me, it makes more sense that somebody would save their best sort of favourite tobacco to sit back and relax during the holiday and smoke. A treat, if you like, maybe a blend which is a special blend which they only smoke for special occasions. That would make sense to me. But I guess, as with everything, people smoke things the way they like. Okay. I think we're going to smoke in this Peterson. Really nice. This is my most recent Peterson. It's an estate pipe I bought at the Danish pipe shop. Really interesting shape on the shank on this one. Nice triangular shape with a silver cap. And this one is from 2001. It looks like there's a clean filter in there, so that's a bonus. Favorite cigar? Yeah, I agree. That's a good idea. Although you guys will have heard my story already about New Year's Day. New Year's Eve, I set aside a really sort of special cigar, and it tasted rank. I actually dumped it halfway through. So that put paid to my New Year's Eve celebrations, tobacco-wise. I'm still using the clipper, which I started using a week or so ago. It's okay. For some mystery, it always lights on the second go. I can't quite understand it. Maybe it needs to feed enough gas up or something like that. But still, there, you see? Might work that time. So, Ben, the Artful Codger, he always said that this tobacco needs to be sipped and actually re-drawn in through the nose externally. So the opposite of a rector. The opposite of a retrohale, not a rectorhale. I would not like to see what a rectorhale is like. It does sound gross. Brings to mind those pictures that you see of a flame-throwing can of deodorant. Hey Maui, how you doing? Ghost Cobb, Sean, welcome. Yes, LA pipe smoker, I agree with you. Rector Hill is certainly a lot more palatable. So what's everybody smoking this evening? At the moment, I'm smoking Velvet, having a little bit of a retro evening. Hey Ron. I'm doing well, Sean. I can't remember. I've heard a lot about this salty dog, Smoking Ronnie. I've seen quite a few people with it. I still have yet to taste a decent bit of rum. I don't know why I haven't bought any yet. I should really try some. Early morning pipe. I've got 2 tins of Chariton's First Bowl, which is the match for early morning pipe, which I got for somebody, which I haven't sent off yet. So I put it on my desk because I completely forgot about them. They were on my shelf, so I put them on my desk. So now it'll take maybe half a year instead of a year to get shipped out. Ooh, it must have been Pim o'clock. It's actually smoking quite nicely. I don't remember, Hector, maybe you'll remember, the last time, were you on live when Ben, the Artful Codger, was coaching me through the bowl of Velvet? Joshua, you know, you smoke whatever suits you. That doesn't make you a horrible pipe smoker, it makes you an aromatic pipe smoker. I think the vast majority of us all started on aromatics, so it's quite natural to stay with it. Do you remember, Hector, if I smoked it with or without a filter? I'm just trying to remember if he was coaching me to smoke it without a filter. I've got a feeling, did I smoke it in the Sohn Refberg the little thing, the little Lavat? You know, the one with the green insert. Hey Tim, Latakia Hunter, hi. Westmoreland slices in it, Blakemore Canadian, nice. Yeah, he was the one that told me about externally inhaling it through the nose. Good evening, Art, North Country Fisher, how you doing? I honestly don't remember, Hector. I thought that maybe he was trying to coach me to smoke it without a filter. That's what sort of sticks in my mind, because I wouldn't have had a problem smoking it with a filter. I've got to be honest with you, I still, once I get into the bowl, I tend to get that burley flavour coming through, and it reminds me why I don't like burley blends. Well, that's a very luxurious way to start, Hector. I think Izzy would call you a connoisseur pipe smoker. No, neither am I, to be honest. Yeah, Painkiller, absolutely. I think that's quite a natural progression. I think a lot of us go through that same kind of journey. I never ever anticipated that I would be smoking mostly Virginias or Virginia Forward blends, and that's what I'm doing. At the moment it's kind of a two-horse race. It's Virginia-based tobaccos and Northwoods, or an occasional different Latakia-based blend. Yeah, I can understand that, Hector, but the reality is that people automatically, they'll go into a B&M, they'll go into a shop, and they'll ask the shopkeeper, what should I smoke? And they'll just give them a tobacco that's going to make them come back for more. And the best chance of them doing that is giving them something sweet to try. I must be honest though that in the last couple of weeks I've been finding the Virginias a little bit bland, and I'm pretty sure that's a seasonal thing, and I've been smoking the Northwoods more often, so I'm fairly sure that's a seasonal thing. You just want something a little bit more pokey as the weather turns down. Absolutely, Venkata. What's your favourite, would you say, all time? If you had to choose, what's your favourite tobacco in the world? If you had to choose. Okay, I'm taking the lazy option and I'm dumping this bowl. Good evening, project. 5100, nice. I hope you've still got a sizable stash there, Maui. In fact, I think it was Maui who gave me my first decent taste of 5100. I think I had a smidgen from Alethea. I don't know if you guys know Alethea from the Pipe Club of London. She actually is the one who controls the Instagram page for the Pipe Club of London. She hosts it, and I met her one time at the Dunhill shop 1A in St James's, and she gave me some. She told me, she called it Red Cake, which is one of its names, and at the time I hadn't yet started using filters, so I'd never beforehand really really gone for any Virginias because I couldn't cope with the tongue bite. But she told me to try that, and it was okay. It was okay. I'm not a huge fan of it now either. I do still have the jar that Maui sent me, and I do dip into it from time to time and enjoy it. It's a nice, easygoing blend. But I do find that for the most part, I go for the blends which I know and like and enjoy. Yeah, Hector, that's a very good point about not knowing. Shopkeepers, it's true, they don't know. The vast majority of shops that I go into, although with some exceptions, but the vast majority of shops that I go into, I can tell that I know more than the shopkeeper. Well, shopkeeper is not a good word anymore because it's usually just some young guys working there. They're not shopkeepers as such, but if you were to go into what in America is called a mom and pop store, if you were to find one here in the UK or in Europe, then they probably would know what they were talking about. I went into Shaving Costa. If you remember, I did a video a while back when I was on vacation one time, and I went into the shop, and the guy had run the shop for I don't know how many years. He said it was 20 or 30 years, and he was on his last day that day, which was quite unbelievable timing. He had sold the business to Havana House, which they have shops in Windsor, they have a shop in Oxford, and I think they have one in South Wales, possibly in Bath. And so they just bought this one. I can't remember the town. I can't for the life of me remember. Leeds. Was it Leeds? Oh no, that's where John is, right? Yeah, so I couldn't remember for the life of me. Which Peterson painkiller? The pipe I was smoking tonight. Do you mean the Stanwell? The one that I just smoked now? Yeah, that's a Stanwell. That's I've got I think 4 Stanwells now. Did I say Peterson? Well, my mistake. That's another one. That's probably my favourite one, this one. And this one is also quite a recent one. This one's unmarked, but it's got a really nice, sleek stem on that one. In fact, I must say that all of the older Petersons, at least the ones that I've got, the stems on them are all very, very comfortable. And this is the 4th one. This one's also really nice. It's got a lovely shape, lovely ring grain sandblast on it. Yeah, the metalwork is very good. It's they're all sterling on these ones. Yeah, hobby and craft supplies does work, but not always. I would advise you that it doesn't always work, because hobby supplies is a very common description which are used by people, and it doesn't always get through. And I've taken to just complete random descriptions that could account for the shape of the package, and they generally work. If I'm sending a soft package which has got tobacco in it, soft tobacco pouches or whatever, baggies, I usually put it down as handkerchiefs or that kind of thing, and if there's a pipe in there or a little box in there. Recently I've been putting down toy train set parts, and generally speaking they seem to get through. All the best, Sean, keep well. Yeah, in terms of factory pipes, I would agree there with Hector. We've had this discussion before, probably more than once. Yeah, they probably are some of the best factory pipes. I don't know how far you'd go in terms of describing something as a factory pipe or not. Obviously Savinelli is a factory pipe, I suppose up to the Autograph range, or any of the special lines that they do. I don't remember what we said last time, whether or not places like Castello and these kind of places, whether you would consider them a factory pipe. I think Mike at Briar Blues said at the time that it's only a factory pipe if they use the what do they call those things, that a machine that cuts the shape of the pipe rather than it being turned. They've got these templates anyway. If you have a look at some of the videos online, you can see these templates where they just literally put a piece of briar in and they feed it into the lathe, and it just cuts the whole shape. Not a CNC. I don't think any of them have CNC machines, but the idea is the same. Did he say it was somewhere in between? Okay, interesting. I assume because he says they've got that sort of almost like a pipe photocopier. So they've got some machinery for sure. You certainly wouldn't call them artisan pipes, that's for sure. Cheers, everyone. Yeah, definitely not artisan pipes. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, somewhere in between. and they certainly have the look of a non-factory pipe, the Castellos. Americans certainly seem to be obsessed with Castellos. I read up a lot of the older magazines, and I was reading one today from the Pipe Collector magazine. I've got them going back to 2014, and there was one guy on there who's a huge Castello fan, and he had spent something like $1,750 on a Castello, on one of the large sort of exclusive ones. And he smoked it, and he couldn't smoke it. He said it tasted bitter, and no matter what he smoked in it, it tasted disgusting. And he thought maybe it was just him, so he gave it to a bunch of his friends to try, and none of them enjoyed it. They all said the same thing, so he got rid of it. So paying a lot of money for a pipe doesn't always give you a good smoke. I got into that kind of research after my discussion with Ben, the Artful Codger. I had a long discussion with him again this evening on Instagram, a one-to-one discussion. And when we put up videos, some people get the impression that we're kind of ranting at each other, but we're not. I mean, Ben and I, we've known each other for a long time on the YTPC, and we chat from time to time, and we've exchanged gifts. I think people got the wrong end of the stick. He had put up this video. I'm just going to finish off my London Fog. He had put up this video a few days ago, saying that you don't have to have the latest tobacco or the latest pipe or the latest fashion or whichever trend is happening now, the latest sort of small batch tobacco to enjoy pipe smoking. And he was he is a big supporter of having, just a few tobaccos and really getting to know them. And I actually support that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, people have different ways of doing things. And he said the same with the pipes. And my video was simply to say that, yeah, that's absolutely great. But whichever way you smoke it is fine. It makes no difference. People shouldn't feel obliged to do it in any way, shape or form. He was just giving his side of it, his version. And I just wanted to sort of stand in the middle. Not diss any particular way and not support any particular way, but just say, do whatever makes you happy. And he wasn't against that in any way at all. He just came across that way. But there was no issue at all. And we've had a very good-natured discussion afterwards. So that's why I put up the second video, just to clarify that, and I hope it did go some way to clarifying it. But I think Eric took umbrage on behalf of Ben. But all good. I didn't know you were such a big fan of 40th, Hector. Maui, you'd probably be able to give me an answer to this question. Would you say that say the bangs and things like that you smoke are any better in terms of smokability than, say, a $100 pipe or a $200 pipe? No, it ain't there no more. Well, Painkiller, there's a huge amount of it out there. The pipe shows are still selling them plenty. In America, there's plenty of them going around in the pipe shows. Hey, Ken. Pipehead, is he on? I didn't see him. Algonquin Briar, I didn't see you either. Hi there. Hi Josh. Cool, I'm missing a load of people. Too busy talking as usual. Although it'd be a bit boring if I wasn't talking. 65 US per tin. Yeah, that's cheap. I'd grab it at $65. Nice one, Maui. I didn't ask you to say how much they cost. Just whether or not it's worth the money. How you doing, Pipehead? Oh, nice. London Fog, there you go, people. That's interesting that you say that, Art. I know you got a lot of pipes. If you don't mind sharing, what is the average price point of your pipes? And if they're all over the place, what's your highest price point of a pipe? Pipehead, I assume you're smoking the Sutliff Pipehead Oregon version. Okay, fair enough. That sounds good, Art. What's your $500 pipe? Which make is it? Who's it made by? Again, no pressure. Only if you want to share. Oregon Fog, absolutely. See you, Maui. Can I ask what year the Dunhill is, Art? Oh, that's interesting, Painkiller. I didn't know that they were making it to the US yet. I'd heard that they were only going to make it to the US next year. 1961, and you're saying it's not such a great smoker? That surprises me. Or at least you're saying it's no better than any of the others. The older Dunhills are supposed to be good, but obviously up to a point, you know, it's going to depend on pipe to pipe. Each one's going to be different, but I must be honest, the Dunhills that I've had, I've also not been blown away by. The only thing I've had, I'm trying to think how many I've had. Over the few years, I've probably had half a dozen, maybe a bit more. I've got one at the moment, which I actually bought from new, the only Dunhill that I ever bought from new. It's a beautiful pipe, but I just don't smoke it that often. Nothing wrong with it at all. But the other Dunhills that I've had were not great smokers. The only feature which I felt stood out to me was I found the draw to be quite velvety smooth, and it was very consistent between pipes as well. Yeah, I would have to say the same about the Dunhills. They're okay. I've really not had a great smoke, but I think people would say that I haven't been smoking a pipe long enough, and I haven't had enough pipes to really say. That's very cool, Newton. I'm not sure that I'd be able to do that. That's very self-controlling of you. Good for you. That's very cool, Painkiller. That's good to hear. I'm happy for you guys. I would like to get a 1969, which is my birth year, Dunhill, but I'm not obsessed by it. I could have picked one up many times. I've seen them, but they just weren't the right ones, and it's not something I'm obsessed by. So if I get one, I get one. If not, not. Yeah, filter pipes. They've been such a revelation for me. They've completely turned around my whole pipe smoking experience. And I must be honest, if I wouldn't have discovered 9mm pipes, I wonder if I would have ever gotten around to actually starting to make pipes. Because I reckon that if I hadn't discovered the pipes, the 9mm at the end of 2017, by now I probably would have stopped smoking a pipe. I reckon I'd have been exclusively smoking cigars, maybe with the odd pipe here and there, but at that time, in around November, December time 2017, I think in the space of about 3 or 4 months, I could probably count the amount of bowls I'd had on one hand. I am a pipe fiend. My Instagram name is I will write it. Mastro de Paya do make some lovely pipes. Hey Grobnup. My biggest sort of, I won't say regret, but what makes me unhappy that I only smoke 9mm is that I don't get to smoke I've got 2 very special Soren Refbergs, which they're very special to me. One of them is that little Lovat, which I'm sure you guys have seen before. And one of them is a pipe which I bought when I was in Geneva, in Zurich I should say, and I've never smoked it. I absolutely agree with you, Hector. I've had that myself also for instance, with Latakia blends, I don't get as much tongue bite, and that's why I smoked Northwoods a lot, and in 2017 I was smoking mostly Latakia blends because they tend to burn cooler and gave me less tongue bite, and I could just about manage them, but there are some blends now that if I would try them, they would just be too harsh, and they would just have too much of a sort of a dirty, gritty edge to it, which the filter just rounds out really nicely and takes you to the heart of the flavour. Some people say the same about Meerschaum pipes. I've never really gotten into Meerschaum pipes. I do have one which I really enjoy smoking. It's the only one I have left now, which is the Pipe Club of London 2018, I think. Either 17 or 18. I think it's 18. Yeah. Hey Harold. I think that works to some extent. I think that may work for a lot of people, including you. But for some people, depending on the sensitivity of their tongue, even dried out tobacco irritates it. I think we all have different issues, different sensitivities, and some people it just affects very, very extremely. Yeah, I would agree with you, Hector. On many blends, it's about the taste. pH is to do with it as well. I've never gone into it scientifically. I think art has, but you're very lucky, Harold. You really are, because as a middle of saying that, the regret that I have that I only smoke 9mm is because I can't have access to 99.9% of tobaccos, of pipes rather, of artisan pipes. Very few make 9mm pipes, and that's why I've kind of stuck to 9mm, although I intend to do some non-9mm pipes. But I've stuck to 9mm because, and there's been a pretty good take-up. I mean, I've got a few pipes which I haven't sold, but the vast majority I've sold. And I think that's because there is not that great a selection of artisan 9mm pipes. Well, time you pass them on, Josh. Pass them on and buy a few more 9mm. Hi Daniel. I didn't enjoy the velvet. I tossed it a quarter of a way through the bowl. I deliberately didn't say LCS pipes, Josh. I didn't want to be presumptive, but yes, absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, OCD. Gotta do what works for you. And if you sort of, obviously by smoking them often enough, you know which ones work with which type of pipe, then that's great. If you have the option. I change my filter every smoke as well. I've always done that. Even this pipe, I smoked London Fog in it earlier this evening. I enjoyed it so much that I went straight for another bowl in the same pipe, but I still changed the filter. And there's no question that a filter is good for 3, 4, 5 smokes, but certainly it's going to be good for 2, but nevertheless I still changed it. It's become a kind of thing. Yeah, it was that bad. I stopped. I was that bad. Grueling. Can't decide if I should smoke this amphora. Let's give it a bit of a whiff. Kind of thinking maybe cigar, actually. Not too sure. I haven't smoked that many cigars lately. The Savinelli 320, Daniel, has a very, very large following. I've had one myself, but I didn't enjoy it. But you see how you go. Hey Meeks, is that a Northern Briars you got from me or from Ian? AM pipe and patio. Why, has he got a load of 320s? Onion, has he got a load of 320s? Yeah, exactly, Hector. That was the one and only reason why I didn't keep mine. But I didn't want to put Daniel off, so I let him find his own way with it. I didn't want to say anything about it. The Balsa filters, it really depends what you're using the Balsas for. For me, it didn't work simply because it didn't remove enough of the whatever it was that was giving me tongue bite. That was really why I don't use them. I did use them in the beginning. My first pipe that took balsa filters was the 9mm Savinelli 606. That's this pipe here. This was my second ever pipe that I bought, and this is the pipe that really got me properly into smoking a pipe. And I smoked a lot of cherry blends in there, and mostly Cult Blood Red Moon. That worked so well in that pipe. It's just phenomenal. I'll tell you something, get in touch with Ian at Northern Briars. His prices are fantastic, and the only difference is you just have to be patient. And that's what I do. Every so often I'll put in an order and I'll forget about it, and then a couple of months later he'll tell me it's ready and I'll receive the invoice. You can be a bit patient, just stick in an order. You can get pipes from him for less than £100, you know, proper artisan made pipes. You know, you don't have to get the see this finish here. I don't remember what I paid for this one. This is a Group 4, so it's a little bit bigger. But you could get a Rocks Cut, which is his sort of semi sandblast rusticated kind of finish, and you could pick up a pipe for £60-70, and they'll smoke exactly the same as the ones which are more expensive. And even his more expensive ones, you know, for £130-140 you can get a top rated pipe from him. So just say £100 and 8 weeks, 9 weeks, and you got yourself a good pipe. Hey Mike, how you doing? Yes, Rich, it's the Dr. Pearl. These ones. I buy the 180 boxes because I just go through them too quickly. Oh, you've got the 60th, I forgot. Very nice. I still haven't smoked my 60th. I've got 2 of his 60th. The Sea Urchin is certainly a very unique pipe. But it's certainly going to have resellable value. And I must admit, I do often have that in the back of my mind. Not always. Some pipes I buy, or if I order from him, is purely to smoke. But I look after my pipes, so if I do ever resell them, they're generally in good condition. But the Sea Urchin for me is a little bit, you know, in the early days I would have probably bought it. Nowadays it's a little bit too, I wouldn't say fancy, because I do have fancy pipes, but it's kind of, I'm not sure if it's my style anymore. Yeah, the Helix is the Northern Briars Newton. But if you're talking about getting a good English smoker that will last you a lifetime and beyond for Bubkas, for very cheap, Blakemar is the way to go. It really is. Blakemar, and both Ian's sort of, the Rocks Cut, as I said, Ian's Rocks Cut, very cheap, and they're fantastic pipes. Blakemar's, really great pipes. They're rock solid, they're built like a tank. And you can pick up a pipe for £30-40. You know, you can spend more as well, but the vast majority of his pipes are less than £80. And he can do 9mm as well if you ask him. Well, if you paid for it in advance, then yes, it'd be a nice surprise. But generally, when I order up from Ian, I do tend to just stick it to the back of my mind, and eventually I get a PayPal invoice, so then I remember about it, and then it's time to pay up, darling. That's a very good question, Daniel. Which one was the most challenging? I probably don't have it anymore. I would probably say that, see if I can get a picture on my other phone. Yeah, you're not the only one to say that, Newton. First Bulldog is going to be a real challenge for me. I haven't taken on that challenge yet. I haven't taken that bull by the horns. This one I wouldn't say was the most challenging, but it certainly had lots of different sort of things going on. So with the rustication and the sort of the contrast staining and the sanding to get it right, and sort of shaping the stem to flow nicely. You know, that there was a lot of work involved, but in terms of challenging, maybe not so much. But in terms of challenging, yeah, believe it or not, I think it was this pipe. This pipe, I think, was my most challenging pipe. It's just the shape of the stem. And when I first started doing, let's see if I can get a better. You can see it's got sharp edges, so it's not quite a square shank, but it has square edges and then curved top. And you can kind of get the curvature there. There's a good shot of it there. So you can see the sides are straight and the top and bottom of the shank are curved. So it's kind of sort of Canadian style, but with sharp straight edges. And the same again, the shaping, I shaped the stem to follow that shape, and it really, the person who got this pipe has already got about 4 or 5 of my pipes, and it's actually in the mail at the moment. He should be getting it any day now, and he really got a cracker. I mean, the plateau on this one is gorgeous, tight. Sort of the nodules on the top of the grain are tight. I'm sure like a high-end artisan piper could have made a lot more out of this piece of briar. But I have noticed, Mike, you might be able to comment on this, some briar, they have a different shade of colour, of lightness at the top there, presumably to do with just the age of that section of the briar, maybe of the burl, I don't know. But there you can see the colours are much richer there than they are up there. And I sold this pipe, I think, for I think it was £140, maybe something like that, which I think is an absolute bargain. 140, maybe £150, I can't remember. Yeah, I guess so, Mike. I mean, one of the things that I found really challenging with this pipe was when you do a symmetrically designed shank, when you take the stem off, the face of the shank, unless you're going to put a silver bit on it or something like that, a cap, but the face of the shank, if you want your pipe to be as it should, and you want to sort of consider yourself to be a pipe maker, it's got to be symmetrical. And you know, when you put the stem in and you shape the stem, it hides a lot of flaws, because as long as the flow of the stem sands and is shaped well and matches well to the shank, it'll be fine. But when you take the stem off, especially when you've got curved edges, unless it's absolutely equal on both sides, the drill is not going to look central. When you put the stem back on, it'll look fine. It hides that. But unless it's really sanded to perfection, it looks a bit lopsided. And this one, as I say, I worked really, really hard and a long time on the sanding to get it looking exactly as it should. And this was one of the pipes which I really struggled to sell, because I really wanted to keep it. But as they say, you know, cobbler's shoes generally look the worst. And they sell their good shoes. That's what we're in business for. I mean, it had so much going for it, this pipe. Very clean briar. Very, very clean briar. Besides for that sort of slight change in the colouring there. But really, really worked out well, this pipe. Thank you, Griffin, I appreciate that. Do I smoke the blowfish? I don't have a blowfish. I don't believe I have a blowfish pipe. Not that I can recall. I mean, I haven't lost my marbles completely. Unless you're talking about this pipe here, the puffer, which I call the puffer, but it's never been smoked. So I have to make a new stem for it. This one, and I hope I can match it, because this one really complements it very well. But it's loose. And that's why I've never tried selling it either, because I still need to get it right. I'm probably gonna make that into a 9mm. The actual stem there is not a 9mm. Hey Steph, is that Steph or Skip? How you doing, Steph? Yeah, so this one was one of my, probably my first freehand pipe. Originally it was up for sale, but then for some reason this loosened up. Don't remember what I did to cause that to happen. It may have been that there was a temperature difference when I was working on it. I honestly don't recall. The plateau on this one also worked out really well. Managed to get quite a bit of it to shine up, which can be a challenge with plateau. So this one's got a occasion. Really nice grain there, and I had no choice but to do that because there were some slight sand pits and stuff like that. It just had to be done. But it actually is quite symmetrical. I think it works nicely, and I think once the stem issue is sorted out, I'll either sell it or I'll smoke it. It's a perfectly handleable pipe. It's not too big, it's not too heavy, and the shape is just, for me, to my eye, it's perfect. It's just so balanced, you know. So it sits on my desk saying to me, fix me, fix me. And it's drilled very well as well. It's got a perfect drill. Nice big bowl, nice wide bowl. And it looks like I even sanded the bowl, which I don't usually do. I actually prefer to have a rough bowl. No, it wouldn't be a clencher, I wouldn't have thought so, no. I call that my puffer fish, because I think it looks like a puffer fish. It just has that look to it, to my eye. So I call that my puffer, because number one, it's a pipe, which it's a puffer, and it also looks like a puffer. Make it into one of those old school nightstand pipes with a hose. Oh, I see. Yeah, that's a cool idea. Oh, briar block's expensive. It's like everything. It's like a car. You can buy a cheap one, you can buy an expensive one. You can pick up some blocks for $2 or $3, and you can pick up some blocks for over $100. It really depends what you're looking for. But the average price of blocks that I've been using range from about $10 to about $30 or $40. And generally speaking, as long as you're buying blocks from a reputable place, you get what you pay for, like with most things in life. You get what you pay for. Do I like working with the red stems and swirl stems or the black stem types? I liked working with them both. I never thought I would work with acrylic, because I never liked smoking acrylic, but I found that it could well be just the type of acrylic stems that I'd bought on the pipes that I'd bought in the past. But the ones that I make, that I finish now, I shape them and round them off and smooth them out, and they're really comfortable. My LCS Rhodesian, which I smoke all the time, you can see here how rounded off it is, and it's really, really comfortable. I smoke it all the time, and I would never have thought it. I still prefer, in terms of my teeth contact, because I do clench quite a bit, it's certainly harder on the teeth than ebonite. So generally speaking, when I order, if I do a custom order, say from Ian, all of my pipes from Ian are all ebonite. They're all Cumberland. Generally speaking, they'll be Cumberland, but they're all ebonite, and they'll have that same softer, kind of more forgiving texture on your teeth. But I'm very used to acrylic now. I never was, but I am now. I haven't bought direct from Mimo, but some of the Briar that I've had is Mimo Briar. I could buy direct from Mimo, but you need to buy a reasonable amount. I mean, you can buy packs of 10 blocks, but the ones that I buy at the moment, I'm happy with what I'm buying. It may well be when I'm in a position to sort of buy in bulk, in real bulk, maybe get 100 blocks at a time and spend a couple of £1,000. Maybe I'll do that, but I'm not in a position to do that yet anyway. There definitely is a difference in quality, Daniel, in terms of lucite, acrylic, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know enough about them to say which is which, but in terms of describing it to you now, but when I come across one, I know. I've had some terrible acrylic stems. That's a good question, Dublin. I believe I have read somewhere that people have made pipes from mahogany and lots of different types of wood. Maybe Mike can answer that question better, but I have read somewhere, and I'm pretty sure I've seen mahogany on the list. But it's obviously doesn't lend itself to it, otherwise it would be used. It's far more easy to harvest than briar. There's a reason why all that work goes into harvesting briar. It's the best material for pipes. Thanks, Uncle Frank. It's not my work, it's the quality of the briar. When you're looking at a briar and it has nice grain, yes, of course, as a pipe maker, you have to finish the pipe so that the grain is evident, but I can't take any responsibility for the quality of the briar. I have been very lucky with a lot of the pipes that I've made, but what you don't see is what goes on behind the scenes is the amount of blocks that have been garbage. And that's really, you have to take that into account when you're buying, especially from artisan carvers. And for me, I have kind of veered towards smooth pipes more. My output generally is for smooth pipes more than rusticated pipes. I've yet to really settle on a favourite rustication. So far, I would say that probably the Sea Rock style has been my favourite. There's quite a lot of work involved in that, a lot of elbow grease. It's quite heavy work, so I don't really want to be doing that every day. For a while I did the golf ball style rustication like that, which is time consuming. It's not, I suppose any rustication is time consuming, but if you haven't got machines that do a whole pipe in a go, everything is time consuming. And sometimes, despite the fact that smooth pipes actually cost more, they actually don't necessarily take as long as it takes to make a rusticated pipe. On the other hand, you have to get an excellent piece of briar in order to produce a good smooth pipe. Otherwise it's not going to look nice if it's full of blemishes. So you're going to lose time in the fact that some pipes you'll start and not finish because they're too bad looking, and then maybe you'll rusticate them later on. But sometimes they may not take as long as a rusticated pipe. Your mate has a lump of it. Good for him. Yeah, I've seen Hector's beechwood pipe. Yeah, so they're definitely. I mean, there's cherry wood, which people use a lot. There's mortar. There's olive wood. There are some which obviously over the years people have narrowed down to the ones which are usable, which are pretty successful for use in pipes. Mortar, I've made 1.5 mortar pipes. I made one which worked out pretty well, which I gifted to Bluefin, Andrew Sirigliano. That was an interesting shape, that one. And the second one I started but haven't finished, because that one is actually a really interesting shape, but I busted up the top part of the pipe when I was drilling the bowl. It's still finishable. I have to just sort of rethink it and just diversify a little bit, but one day I hope to finish that pipe, because it really does look interesting. But I've yet to really get to grips with drilling a pipe after it's been shaped. I'm still pretty much velcroed to drilling the pipe before shaping it. Doing it on the lathe. Sometimes I'll do a little bit in terms of cutting it with a bandsaw to get the really rough outline, but I will still have square edges so I can grip it on the lathe. That's about as far as I'll go, but at the moment I'm still cutting and drilling on the lathe. Sometimes I'll drill it on the lathe and then freehand the shaping, do none of the shaping on the lathe. That I will do, but the drilling I'm still doing on the lathe. There's pearwood as well. Yeah, Mr. Brogg. The vast majority of theirs, I think, are pearwood. There was something I wanted to talk about, which is about BRTV. Just bear with me 1 second. I need to think what I'm going to smoke. If I'm going to take a pipe or a cigar. It's a good question, Daniel. Mike might be able to answer that more informatively. But in terms of my own experience, I think it really depends on the depth of the rustication compared to the depth of the sandblast. For me, the rusticated pipes, they serve the grooves in a rusticated pipe depend on the type of rustication, but the grooves and the additional surfaces created by the rustication is what acts as like a radiator, and it helps to dissipate some of the heat that's building up in the pipe, which is often why you'll find that a smooth pipe, before it's built up in a reasonable cake, and if it's got thin walls, it will be very hot to hold if you're not experienced in piping and keeping it so your cadence down to a level which stops it getting too hot. Excuse me a second. But rusticated pipes, so if you have a look at that, the Cerox, for example, essentially, if you look at a smooth pipe compared to a rusticated pipe, if you take a square, square 1/2 inch of the smooth and a square 1/2 inch of this pipe, if you would measure all of the surfaces, the amount of surfaces on this pipe, the amount of actual surface area on this pipe is probably double or triple the surface area of this pipe, despite the sizes being very similar. But because in 3D it's going up and down in the same amount of space, so it's at least doubling, if not tripling or quadrupling, the actual amount of surface area. So if you imagine that's the surface of a smooth pipe, and that's the surface of a rusticated pipe. So not only have you got the ups and downs, but you've actually got all the sides, the 3D effect there, which I've tried to shadow in. So you could potentially have 4 sides which are actually giving you surface area. So you might only have an inch from there to there and an inch from there to there, but you could have 3 or 4 times the amount of surface area on this pipe as opposed to that pipe, and each of those surfaces is dissipating heat. That should give you a bit of a better illustration. Well, Dublin, I suppose that's a good question coming from an Irishman. I don't whiskey treat my pipes at all. I do use something akin to Everclean or that kind of thing. Exactly like the fins on a motorcycle engine, or any engine for that matter. I use this one. It's nearly finished, and I really need to get another bottle. But generally speaking, I'm not a fastidious, whatever the word is, pipe cleaner. I break my pipe down just to change the filter, and occasionally I'll stick a filter through it. But in terms of the only time I'll use the alcohol is when if I feel that the flavour's going downhill a bit. A smooth pipe is more expensive because, number one, a good clean piece of bry is rarer, so you have to pay for that. Like in anything, if you're buying something which is rare, you pay more. The wastage that an artisan pipe maker who doesn't do rusticated pipes, for instance, you generally will not find rustication amongst the high-grade artisan pipers. You'll find smooth and you'll find sandblasted, or a mix of the two. Sandblasted doesn't necessarily hide the grain. If you've got sandblasted highlights the grain just in a different way. Let me find you my... So this is a good example. This is my Parker Billiard. So this is sandblasted. Now you can see the grain, the ring grain there. It's very, very pronounced on this pipe. And here you can actually also see the straight grain going up. So this possibly could have been a nice pipe, smooth as well, but obviously there was a reason why they felt it needed to be sandblasted. So sandblasting, what happens with, so you can see there's some dips, some pits there, which possibly is the reason why this was sandblasted. Sandblasting generally, what it does is it removes the softer parts of the briar and leaves the harder parts of the briar, and depending on how you sandblast it, obviously it takes skill and practice, something I hope to be able to master at some point. I've actually started looking at prices for, they're not that expensive for sandblasting cabinets, but I need to do research. I don't want to invest in one and find that I should have got something else, so I need to do some research. But I think it's fairly straightforward. Fastidious, that's the word, sorry, fastidious, quite right, Rich, thank you. Yeah, so that's basically, it's not necessarily to hide grain, it highlights the grain, but different grain. It highlights the ring grain as opposed to the straight grain. Yes, grain. So next time you take out a granary loaf, John, just say to your wife, just look at that grain. Although, to be honest, a granary loaf is probably more of a rusticated grain, I would have thought. Some of them are, anyway. At least by the time you finish with them. Alright, enough. TMI. The compressor, yeah, absolutely. I'm only very early on out. Obviously, the cabinet's just a cabinet. It's just a glorified cupboard, isn't it? But it's the actual compressor and the gun. Obviously, I definitely need to do some proper research on that. Thanks, Daniel. No problem. I don't own a pressure washer, no, but I hear where you're coming from on that. But I must be honest, I mean, I've had a look online actually last week, and they're not that expensive. I can buy the whole kit for like 100 and... I'm not sure if it included the compressor as well, but I reckon for somewhere between $200 and $300 I could have the whole kit. Rich, where are you based? Which pipe club are you going to? Can you imagine what breakfast must be like at Bohemian's breakfast table? His old Doris bringing in the loaf and him going, "Just look at that grain." I bet you when he makes himself some toast, he sees faces of Putin in the toast. All right, Pascal. Good for you, Rich. One of my favourite sweets, halva. That was nice. Daniel, I've tried last week, I think it was. I tried the Dunhill flake replacement and the navy rolls. I've actually, the people that I sent pipes to last week, I actually sent samples of both of those two. I'll be interested to hear what they feel about those. But it's very, very fresh, so it's hard to really get a good comparison, but my guess is it's exactly the same. I would be very surprised if there was even the slightest deviation from the original. Well, when I say original, the last iteration from Scandinavian Tobacco Group. I think I'm going to have some of this BS 759, which was sent to me a long time ago by Stephen, Cobber of the Shire, which I've been enjoying recently. It is a BS blend, and I've never understood why they used, I know it's Balkan Sobrani, but on the, oh my gosh, look what's just happened. I'm not going to say which pipe maker actually did this for me. I had these converted before I was making pipes myself. This is a Boswell pipe, and the 9mm thing has just come out. Look at that. Oh, I'm still going to use it. It is, yeah. It's a Mayon blend. Is it one of his? Yeah, I think it is. I'll have to glue that one back in at some point, but it's a tight fit, so it's fine. Yeah, I use composite glue. I started off using super glue, but I was advised against it because the super glue does soften with heat, and a pipe's going to give it heat. But apparently the composite works better, so that's what I'll... Next time it happens, it'll probably remind me to do it. This is really, really good tobacco. I have converted some pipes, Bona. Hi, good evening, Bona. I've yet to try Art's system of using reamers, but for the ones that I have converted, I've basically done it pretty much by hand. So I've basically hand drilled that for 9mm, and if it's a straight stem, then I just cut off the old tenon and drill a new one in. If it's bent, I don't think I've done a bent one yet, and I still want to get from somewhere some kind of set of jaws to go in my lathe, which will grip a bent stem. I've yet to come up with that. I may have to make something up out of wood, I'm not sure. The gap between the filter and stem, I did a video about that many moons ago. You know the when you go to the shop and they give you a cash receipt, that very thin stuff on the roll, just tear a thin strip like that, and wrap it around like that, as much as you need really, till it gives you a nice tight fit. Wedge it in and job's a good one. Most times that works. That will seal it and you'll be drawing straight through the filter as opposed to round the filter. I did it for a while, but then I just didn't bother. But that's a good way of doing it. It's something that I wanted to overcome with the pipes that I made, and the problem with it is that you need to use a 10mm, I use a 10.2mm drill bit, because the tenons that you get, the cones as they're called, are 10.2mm. And the only way to really overcome that is to actually make the tenon yourself, which is a lot of hassle. If you look at Jordan, the Prairie something or other, Prairie Shop or Prairie Smoker, he's been making some lovely pipes recently, Jordan, and he makes his own tenons, and those ones will fit, assuming he does them the right size, those ones will fit a lot better. But I use the cones, I buy the cones, and the reason why I do that is because it's consistent. I can drill the cones, make sure they're drilled in central, and I can drill them on the mortise and know that they're going to fit a nice snug tight fit, And the filter is a problem. The filter, there is a bit of wiggle room, it's true. But what I try to do, just to stop it from rattling around, is to make the drill so that when the filter goes in, it hits the end of the mortise so that there is really very little wiggle room. The bowl holes that I do are either 18 or 20 mil. I've got other sized drills, but those are the two that I generally do. And if I'm doing more of a freehand, it tends to be 18 mil in case when it gets to it I need to sand it down more and more. So it gives me more briar to play with. It's only 2 mil, but 2 mil all the way around is a fair bit of briar. Oh, that's interesting art. I'll have to try those bigger filters. Well, some of mine are tapered. Some of them are a U-shape, which is what you call a round one, and some of them are V-shape. It depends on the drill bit that I use, obviously. I do have one which is called UV, which is somewhere in between, but I have to send it back because it's really, when I use it, it makes a huge noise on the lathe, and it just doesn't cut. It tends to chip away, so there's something up with it. Sukkot's been awesome. It's been really nice. Tomorrow night, the second half of the festival starts. Oh yes, Harold, you're quite right. Yeah, so I'll be incommunicado Monday and Tuesday. From tomorrow night until Tuesday night, I'll be out of touch. And I'm hoping by that time, a very special pipe will be arriving here. I just got news today that a pipe is on its way to me, all the way from Canadian land, so I'm looking forward to getting that. In terms of BRTV, I think Mike was talking about it the other day, about people complaining and going on about it, that it's not working very well. And he was complaining that there wasn't much support for it out there, that none of the forums were talking about it. Good night, Dublin. Wish you better. All the best. And he was bemoaning the fact that there wasn't much support out there, the forums, the blogs, not a single mention. And Mike was thinking that perhaps some of the blog admins were sort of blocking it, because obviously something which is an alternative source for pipe information to their own, obviously they're not going to highlight. But I'm not as conspiracy theorist as that. He may well be right. I mean, Mike's got far more experience than I have. And some people were asking whether or not BRTV will be a nail in the coffin of the YTPC. And I don't think so. I don't think BRTV is designed to do that. I don't think it will do that. It's in its very, very early stages. It's in its infancy, and it's yet to be seen where it's going to go. The only way that it will ever take over the YTPC is if YouTube stops any kind of tobacco output. And I think that the foresight of Phil the person who has set up BRTV, his main, as I understand it, the main raison d'etre of BRTV is to be there for that tobacco apocalypse. I was trying to combine the words there. If that ever did happen, people would be scrambling to find a way to keep the community alive in the virtual world. What kind of divide, OCD, are you talking about? I mean, I would say that still the vast majority of people still are out there on Pipe Magazine, online, and in blogs, news groups, sort of type thing. The YTPC, I think, is still quite a. I mean, on Facebook, for instance, the UK TPC, which is a UK-based Facebook group. I would say that the vast majority of people on that don't watch YouTube. That's the impression that I get. And then there's one which has got something like, I don't know how many members, it's got like 15,000 or 20,000 members. Just going to have a look, see which one it is. I can't remember the name. Gentleman something. The Gentleman's Pipe Smoking Society. That's got something like, it's got 17,000 members, and I would say that the vast majority of those also are not on the YTPC. Spirited Smoke, is that a website or a group somewhere? But anyway, getting back to that, I don't think it's there to. It's not designed to replace anything. I think it's there to be an alternative source, and it has to grow. It's in its infancy. It's barely started, and people are already expecting it to be an all singing, all dancing website. Phil is still working on the infrastructure of the site, and it will take time. Now, I think that the presenters also will need, myself included, will need to produce something extra, something different to entice people to go onto the site. I don't know if Phil has a mechanism at the moment to see. I mean, he's got a counter, a click counter. But at this stage, I don't think we could see, when you look at the site, I don't think you can see how many people have viewed particular videos. There is no form of voting that video by a thumbs up or anything like that. I hope that will all be in the future. I hope that will all come. Yeah, I was just coming to that, Harold. Yeah, so I hope that will come. I hope that will, Bono. I hope it will come. Because if it doesn't have that interaction, I think that the public will give up on it, and the presenters, up to a point, if they get no feedback from their output, it's going to be very demoralizing. The YTPC presenters, they thrive on the interactions, on the push and pull, on the give and take. So at the moment, whilst none of that is available, I think it's going to be crucial for the presenters to just present something different, something a cut above what they're doing at the moment. So I think Mike's doing a series for new pipe smokers, which is a nice idea. Is it a website, Daniel? Is it an app on a phone, or is it a website? If it fails, you can't blame it on anybody. It's a new venture. and it could well be that it needs. You see, I think it's a website. Okay, I think that when Phil really got going with the idea, there was all this hype about the demonetization. Hey Triton, there was all this hype about the demonetization, and I think people probably thought that the YTPC collapse was imminent, and that hasn't happened so far, and it's really been about demonetization rather than content restriction. If one day that did happen and content was restricted in terms of tobacco, then people will be scrambling, and I think Phil wants to be ahead of that game. I think that was the original idea, but even if the YTPC didn't collapse, I think he wants to create another forum where there's no restriction at all, that people can put anything tobacco related on there without having any kind of restrictions at all. At the moment, if people want to earn money on YouTube and have a tobacco channel, they can't. And I think that's Phil's idea, is that he wants to be able to make it monetized at some point when it's popular enough and bringing enough ad revenue. That's the idea. Yes, John, it is limited at the moment, for sure, and he's going to have to expand that soon, because you're limited to 9 or 10 people and the level of output, and if you don't like those presenters, you're just going to switch off, aren't you? 100%. I think the intention is that at some point any person will be able to sign up without any kind of restriction. At the moment, he has to add you if you want to be on there, and as far as I know, it's all down to money at this stage, because of the way he's had to set it up in a piecemeal kind of way, because of the cost. For him to provide something like YouTube would be impossible, and I think we all realise that and acknowledge that, and what he's done so far is already quite impressive for a private person, as a private endeavour. And he's up against a huge mountain. You know, YouTube is just a gargantuan opponent for him, and it's going to be, I think, as long as the YTPC allows the tobacco content, I think he's going to have to provide something special for it to take off. He really is. I'm being realistic. You know, I'm one of those presenters, and the last thing I want to do is be negative about it, and I'm not negative about it, and I'm going to try as best as I can to put stuff on there which people will be interested. But as long as YouTube is there, I think it's going to be really hard. But I give him kudos for trying, and I wish him luck. I hope it works. I mean, the last thing I put on there was this Sunbear blend, because I thought it was something which was topical. It was of the moment. People were buying this stuff, so I put my review on there, and I haven't put it on the YTPC. But I've got no way of knowing at this stage whether it was well received or not, or whether if indeed anybody's actually seen it. See, my original plan was, because I'm still in two minds how to actually divvy up my output. I actually don't know. But the idea was maybe to put stuff on there initially and then put it onto YouTube after it had been on there for a while. But I'm still not too sure. Go and watch my First Impressions OCD on BRTV. I'm not sure about that, Josh. I'm not sure about that at all. YouTube is not the only website out there which has embedded videos. The intention in the long run is not to use YouTube as the source for the videos. I think at the moment he's doing links and stuff like that, but that's not the long-term intention. I think it's going to be a completely proprietary infrastructure. Triton, hi. It's called BRTV, which is a new venture from the Breyer Report. If you go to the BreyerReport.org, it's a website which has lots of information and source material for pipe smoking, and he's now set up he's just now set up a website called BRTV, which kind of mimics the YouTube experience, but it's really quite limited at this stage. But it's really at its infancy, and hopefully it'll grow to be a much more user-friendly, interactive medium. Hey Nathaniel, how you doing? Chag Sameach. Agit Kvittel. It does buffer, it's true, it does buffer. As I say, he's quite limited on his infrastructure at the moment. The back end is limited. Any of you guys tried this this BS? It's quite appropriate actually, because the smell is quite how should I put it? Quite farmyardy. Yes, Harold, they are, but that's not the long-term intention. Oh, Josh. What is the OSM? Originally, Hector, we sent in our intro videos, and they were embedded. They weren't YouTube, but he had some issues. As I say, he's really at its infancy, and he's really working hard to get things where they're supposed to be. But in order for it to work, he's had to link some to YouTube. But the intention, as I say, is for it to be embedded locally. Oh, right, Rich, okay. Daniel, have I thought of making a website? I have, but to be honest, it's something which is for the future. I definitely will need to do that at some point in the future. This cigar tamper was, I think, from Danny Shaw. It was either Danny Shaw or Briarblade Ladon Mott. This one here, I've got two, but one of them is a shot glass, quite a tall shot glass. This one is from Crappy Pipes. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. He's the other half of Scott Pearsall. Is it Pearsall? Pipes, and he's called Crappy Pipes. And I bought a load of tobacco off him when I think it was the Chicago Pipe Show 2018, just after McClelland closed their doors, and he had a mountain of their tobacco, an absolute mountain, and I bought quite a few tins from him, and he sent that in the package. So that's one of them. And this one is a series of cleaner holders that Tom Eltang made, and he sold them on the Danish Pipe Shop. He may still have some up there, I don't know. I like this one. You could have got a completely smooth one, or you could get a part smooth, part rusticated, and I just like this one. It had a really nice, almost like a spider's web sandblast on there, so I went for this one. A bit of a luxury treat for me, but I often actually thought that this is something I could make into a pipe. Just drill it and stick a stem on there, and you got a Eltang pipe. It was something I considered. Yeah, sounds like a good idea. Make tampers out of drumsticks, that would work. I did that when I first got my lathe. Before I got a decent amount of briar, I was making quite a few tampers, but I haven't made any for a while. To be honest, it's just time consuming. It's time that I'd rather be making pipes with, and at the moment I've got a decent amount of briar, so whenever the fancy takes me I can make a pipe. I'd much rather make a pipe than a tamper, to be honest. From a creativity point of view, and from a cost effectiveness point of view. Number one, I probably wouldn't sell many tampers. I don't know who would buy any tampers from me. I'd have to, if I was to make them. I'm not that good at the creative side of tampers, when people mix materials and that kind of thing, and putting tobacco picks in them and all that kind of stuff. Which I'm not really up to. I have no metal working experience at all. That's a nice idea, Daniel. I think that initially I have to be an accomplished pipe maker before I start projecting something that I'm not. I'm not being self-deprecating just for the sake of it. I do see some people out there who I've seen some YouTube presenters who, just on the strength of their YouTube channel, with about 500 subscribers, and they've considered themselves to be something, and they've started making merchandise. And I don't think they've sort of managed to sell anything. But to me, I'm not the pretentious type, and I just can't abide by this. That's just me personally. I'm not telling anybody what to do. If they want to do it, good for them. I hope they make loads of money out of it. But for me personally, it's just not me. If somewhere down the line I've got a successful pipe making business, I'm not talking about Bradley, because he's actually got 20 or 30,000 subscribers or whatever it is. So him, I can understand, because he has become something of a personality. I'm talking about somebody with 500-600 subscribers who made very, very poor videos, spoke about nothing for 15 minutes, and somehow managed to do that every day. And hey Joshua, and it just, I've said this before, when people on their Instagram bio, when they write underneath their name influencer, I get turned off straight away. I just can't abide by people projecting themselves as something out of the ordinary. It just grates. It goes against my grain. It goes against my sensibility. And even if they could sell, Mike, even if they could sell, it just doesn't. Somebody who's. Look, I have to be realistic. I don't want to make a rant out of this. You have to be realistic. At the end of the day, in this day and age, it is about that. There's a lot of faux celebrity. People are celebrities, and they've become celebrities just for being celebrities. If you look at the Kardashians and these people, good luck to them, and they've become celebrities and making loads of money. But people who are talentless, other than being celebrities, how they've become a celebrity, I don't know. But people who are not actually offering anything, they're not actually giving something to society other than a cheap sort of tabloid kind of attention. It's just, to me, it's so false. It's just so superficial, and it just perpetuates a society based on nothing. And that's something which just goes against my personal sensibilities. If at some point in the future, I'm producing pipes which people are buying, and and consistently, and it becomes a business and becomes something which I can justify doing merchandise, then yes, fantastic. It would be another nice sort of branch to the business. But I've only just got off the ground. I'm literally not even off the ground. I'm kind of just taking my first step. I'm dipping my toe in the water. It's just too early. It's too early for that. I'm no carver of any kind of stature at this stage. And what justifies me making merchandise? In other words, something which is, and that's how I see it anyway. Some people produce merchandise as part of their advertising, like Mike is saying here, that he gives it to pipe shows, but for him it's advertising. And Mike's been selling Briar for, 2-3 decades already. So for him it's perfectly understandable. He's established. He's been spending probably thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on advertising. I'm looking back at some of the back issues of the Pipe Collector, which actually is something which Mike introduced me to. As I say, I've got them now going back to 2014, and he's been advertising in there, I think, since day one virtually, and he must have spent thousands on that. So for him, merchandise is another form of advertising. It projects a brand. I don't have a brand. I'm in the middle of making one. I'm in the middle of establishing a name. If it happens, great. Then I'll have something that I can publicize. At this stage, I'm still learning to suck my thumb, I don't think it's about humility, Hector. I think it's about realism. If I go out there churning out loads of merchandise, what am I actually promoting? I'm promoting a business which is barely off the ground, and it would be a waste of money unless I gave it away in terms as advertising. I just don't think it makes sense at this stage. I hope at some stage it will make sense. Maybe it'll be in a short amount of time, maybe it'll be a long amount of time. It really depends on my own personal feeling of how I feel the response is to my pipes. I don't even know if it's something that I'm going to be doing long term. It's at the moment it feels like it is, but as I say, it's too early. it wouldn't do very well if I was to send out a load of merchandise and then suddenly turn up one day and say, actually, I'm not doing pipes anymore. So I want to just keep cracking on with what I'm doing at the moment, see where I can take it, and we'll see from there. I still have a career doing other things, so you have to bear that in mind. I'll be honest, I think that the vast majority of pipe carvers out there, certainly the independent artisan ones, not that many are doing it as a full-time employment. Some are, but the vast majority of them aren't. The vast majority of Instagram pipe makers have other jobs, and some of them are fantastic. You'd think that they were doing it all day long, but he's a good example. Bullfrog Pipes. He's recently had pipes on Danish Pipe Shop, and incidentally, it's something which I wanted to actually talk about, but I've completely forgotten about it. But I'm hoping to actually get some on GQ Tobaccos, part of my journey, and we'll see what happens. I was having a conversation with Sam at GQ Tobaccos, and it was almost like a throwaway remark. And he responded straight away, absolutely, he'd be more than happy to have some of my pipes. So I was really quite gobsmacked at the time. But we'll see what happens. I'll send him a few to appraise and see if he'd be happy to put them on his site. Hopefully he will. And we'll see where it goes from there. Before too long, you'll be getting some in your Briar Blues email. We now stock LCS pipes. Jeremiah's pipes, his what's his name, nut, what do you call them, something nut pipes, donkey nut, is it? It's a shape which I've not seen before. I don't know if it's a new shape which he's made or if he's seen it somewhere else, but he certainly made it his own, and they're very, very popular. They seem to fly off the shelves as soon as he's made one. They seem to be sold, so good luck to him. And he's a lovely guy. He's given me a load of advice. I've messaged him many, many times privately on Instagram, and he always responds with good advice. Hey Rob, I really shouldn't be here. It's 2 a.m, and tomorrow I'm back at a festival, so I'm going to be in the synagogue. I think I have to be there from 7:30 tomorrow morning. Josh, don't ever do that when I'm taking a swig of coffee. He had me spluttering all over the place. I have looked at doing rings. I haven't quite yet done that. I did buy 2 or 3 samples, but they weren't really what I was looking for. Hey Jimmy, how you doing? In terms of rings, I want to start off probably with acrylic rings. Metal rings or silver rings, to some extent, seems to be an easier way to start, because you're basically just going to glue it in. You make a slight indent in the end of the shank and make it line up. I know nothing about sort of sanding or anything like that, whether you can sand it to be in line or whether you have to cut it perfectly so that the ring is flush. I'm not too sure. I haven't done any work on that at all. But in terms of acrylic rings or other woods, maybe using zebra wood or anything. I like cedar, actually. I've made a couple of times out of cedar. If you buy a box of Cuban cigars, some of them have a little, because some of the boxes have 25 cigars in them, it's an unequal number. It's an odd number. So rather than, I know some of the American ones have 24, which is logical. So you've got 2 rows of 12, but for some reason the Cubans have 25 in their boxes, and so therefore you've got a row of 12 and a row of 13. So that gap is filled by a little block of cedar, and they're perfect for making tampers and that kind of thing. And I've asked one of the shops here to actually keep them back when they finish a box, to just keep those bits of briar, those bits of cedar for me. But I've actually made a couple of tampers with them, and I absolutely adore it. It's got a really, really close grain, and it's got a 3D. You know, sometimes you get a block of briar or a pipe, and if you look closely at the grain, it's almost got a 3D effect. It's like, it looks like you're looking at different depths of grain. It's almost like it's translucent. And that's obviously a testament to the finishing of the pipe as well. But the cedar also has that kind of translucence, that kind of 3D depth to the grain, and it's really cool. So I might start with something like that, with a bit of cedar or maybe a bit of a darker wood, possibly, just to contrast with say a lighter briar. I think that's something I might start with. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I've been visualizing in my mind how I'm going to do it, but I've yet to do it. Well, possibly, Jimmy, maybe BRTV will be somewhere to put my pipes up for sale, but at the moment it's far more important for me to sell the pipes, and for that YouTube is certainly going to be a better medium. Hey Joe. Thanks, Hector. Have a good one. If anyone's interested, this pipe's still available. Beautiful volcano. Reverse plateau. Really nice. Beautiful grain. Stunning grain, really. 9mm. It's available. As is this one. This is quite a big pipe. The guy who'd originally reserved it backed out. It's a lovely pipe, this one. LCS 43. I've got to try and order up some proper stamps, because they do look a bit haphazard using these individual stamps. They're a bit unprofessional looking. My inventory, I don't have a single source. Every so often I'll just do an update on YouTube saying what I've got left available. At the moment I've got about 3 or 4 pipes left. Out of that, I'm up to about I think my next pipe is going to be number 45. So out of those 45, I'm very happy to say that I've sold probably 40 of them. Well, some of them I'll have given away as well, but the vast majority of them are sold. I was thinking about it actually. I started selling, I think around December time. Number 1 I sold to, was it OCD? Was it you? Are you still on? I do have an Instagram account, but maybe you're saying I should do a separate one. just for the pipe output. Yeah, so OCD's got my first one. That one was originally from a kit block, one of my early ones. Quite a few of my pipes have sold through Instagram. In fact, probably my main buyer so far, who's bought I think 4 or 5 pipes. He's on, although he does watch my videos as well, but he buys through Instagram. This is my current handle, but maybe I do have another account which was just for pipes some time ago, which I don't really use, but maybe I'll change that to LCS. I was actually thinking, maybe you guys can give me your opinion. I was thinking whether to change the name to London Briars. Probably there's been a London Briars in the past, I would imagine, or to leave it as LCS Briars. What do you think? I mean, LCS certainly is where it all started, which is based on my YouTube channel, London Calling with Simon. Yeah, I think the original idea was to call it LCS Briars, but have another line underneath it saying London Made, something like that. Yeah, that's probably true, OCD. Yeah, you might be right there. Yeah, so I'll probably stick with LCS Briars. It's where it all started. Daniel, in terms of next pipe shape, I have no idea. I don't always know until I start sort of carving the pipe. What I'll usually do, BPR UK LCS is still much of a mouthful. I know you're being sarcastic there, Josh. Maybe it should be called Yellow Stem Briars, Josh. Yeah, that would be fine, Bono. If they're straight pipes, you could probably send them already now. If they're bent pipes, I probably wouldn't want to get involved with it at this stage. Cheers, OCD. All the best. Where was I? Yeah, in terms of the shape. So what I usually do is I haven't got a block here in front of me, but what I'll usually do is I'll draw the shape that I want to do on the briar, just an outline, like you see on all the pictures online that all pipe makers do. You have to have some idea beforehand. Sometimes the pipe will end up looking like it, sometimes it won't. But yeah, that's usually how I'll go. So if I'm particularly inspired by a particular shape of pipe that I've seen, I might try and do the same thing again. I'll do an outline and take it from there. See, for instance, my where is it? I'm not sure if I've got it with me. It might be in my pouch. 1 second. No. My Son Refberg, the one that I use, oh here it is, right in front of my nose. So this one here was an inspiration for a pipe. That shape, I really love the shape of this pipe. see if I can find a picture of the one that I made. There you go. So this was the... Okay, it's smooth, so obviously it's not going to be... Not that one. Oh no, hang on. Yeah. Trying to get a good view. So if you look at that one, you can kind of see the shape there. And it's not as well made, obviously, but that was the inspiration for that pipe. Actually, that pipe I still have. That one actually worked out really nice. What was that? No, I think that was my mum in hospital. In terms of the briar, what I'll usually do is the faces of the briar is usually quite dirty. Thanks, Bono, appreciate that. So the face of the briar is usually dirty, of the block. So if there's a pipe which obviously the shape that I want to has to fit into the block, so I'll have a sort of a short list of maybe 2 or 3 blocks, and I'll sand the faces of the block to see what the briar looks like. And usually it's based on that. So if I'm going to do a smooth pipe, then I'll look for something where I can sort of carve an attractive grain from it. And if I'm doing a pipe which I don't mind if it ends up being rusticated, then I'll pick a block which hasn't got the best grain. It might have plenty of grain, but not in terms of looking attractive. It may not be a straight grain or something like that. It may be just a mixture of straight, flame, and that kind of thing, which you do get. So that I'll do if it's a pipe which I don't mind if it ends up having to be rusticated. Thanks, Robert. Yeah, a good example is this one here. I haven't actually smoked this one in a while. This is a pipe I made a while back. I ended up restaining it because I was practicing doing contrast staining. And I also, this was when I was sort of practicing doing stems, so it's a bit of a rough and ready stem, but perfectly acceptable and perfectly smokable. Quite an English looking bit on that one. It's actually really quite comfortable. What was I saying? Yeah, so in terms of the grain, so this one has got quite a mix of grain. So there's a little bit of straight, there's a little bit of flame, and there's a little bit of hodgepodge over there. So this pipe, if it would have ended up being, although it has got, I think this is actually worth resanding and refinishing again using the contrast staining that I've kind of started using now. Excuse me. But that's certainly something which I need to develop is my stem making. That's definitely an area for development. I'm not sure, to be honest. I'd have to look back at my YouTube channel to see what this one was. I don't recall, to be honest, if this was my first attempt at a classic shape. It may have been my first real attempt. I definitely made a sort of a billiard style pipe before, the one that I did online live, if you guys remember, with what's his name, Sea Smoke something or other. So that wasn't the first pipe. That was really the beginning of everything, really. Well, this one, the bit issue on this one was simply that the 9mm tenon extends right there to the edge, and I sanded it. You can see that little divot there. That's really the issue. Other than that, it's fine. I do need to resand it and refinish it, but Josh, if you wanted this one as an estate, you're welcome. Work something out with you, no problem. But we'll have to see. Maybe I'll just want to keep it as one of those sort of in development, sort of something which showed my journey. It actually has great balance. It's a nice. I'd want to, if I did sell this, I'd want to refinish it. I certainly would want to refinish it. I could put one of those yellow stems on there if you wanted, but I'd have to really reshape the stem. Yeah, a couple of people have liked this pipe. Mike Gamecock pipe also is really fond of this pipe. Yeah, drilling is great on it. Drilling is fine. It smokes very well. I would like to do the Shape 55 again. That one is sold now, and it's on its way to its new owner. Actually, one of the BRTV presenters. So maybe you'll get to see that on BRTV. Or maybe it'll be on YouTube. I got a lot of stick with that Shape 55. People telling me it's not a Shape 55. You can't call it a Shape 55. It's not faithful to the Castello design. But it was my version, I don't care. No, it wasn't Mike. Mike was, he was actually just showing what the original 55 was. But some people were saying that Mike was absolutely fine. People make sort of their own version or their own kind of homage to something, and that was what mine was. It wasn't intended to be an exact replica. It wouldn't be a problem at all, Rich. I would say that I think all of my pipes have gone to the US, but they've all gone international, I think, with the odd exception, maybe one or two here in the UK, but mostly, I would say 95% have gone international. The majority, believe it or not, have gone to Singapore. I've sold quite a few to Singapore. I've sold quite a few to Canada, quite a few to America, and a couple here and there in Europe. Indeed, Jeff has. Hi, Jeff. Yeah, Tim has one, that's true. That was one which was bought for him by Art. Daniel, definitely. I send pipes to Canada. I've sent quite a few to Canada. Yeah, Josh is my second prolific purchaser. Rich, as long as you don't mind getting train set spare parts, I can send to America. A lot of pipe makers make Christmas editions. I might make Hanukkah editions, maybe. That's actually quite a cool idea, come to think of it. A Hanukkah edition. That would be really cool. Possibly the first. I wonder if what's that Israeli company called that Michel Baruch always shows? Tim, I'm sure you'll remember. My brain. Come on, you guys, you must know the Israeli company. Alpha, yeah. There he is. Yeah, I think they had the name Shalom Pipes. Alpha, I think, is all part of the same company. Hi, Art. Ben, how you doing? Look, I tried it, but I couldn't get through the bowl. I don't know if you watched that part yet. Uzi. Those are short stubby pipes, aren't they? They got a wicked retrohale. I'm a man of my words, Ben. I did try. I said I was going to do it. I got through about a quarter of the bowl and then dumped it. I did try, and I couldn't find my half and half. I was going to smoke some half and half as well. I was going to have a retro evening, but I think I gave that, whatever I had left in my pouch I gave away, and I wasn't going to open that vintage tin. Do you think that, Ben, do you think that that vintage tin, which I've got, which is from around the 50s, would be significantly different to the current half and half? It's only nasty to people who don't like it, but for people who like it, they love it. Have I thought of using a red stain? Well, not necessarily red, but lots of different colours. I've started using a brown stain, which is quite logical, obviously, with pipes. And I think the last one, it really worked out quite nice. Which pipe was that I did a contrast? Oh, it was that, the Cobra pipe. That was my first real half-decent stab at stain. At least a half-decent one that it worked out in a reasonable, successful way. There, this one there. So I got a really nice contrast on this one. So although I haven't yet sort of mastered it, and to really pick out the bird's eye and stuff like that, which it also depends on the briar itself. Excuse me. Ooh, a cigar. But that worked out quite well on the staining. I'm sure Ben has had Granger, I would have thought. I haven't. That's an American OTC, which I wouldn't have come across unless I was actively looking for it or trying to get it from the US. Right, Robert. Chad. We're getting all the Choshever people in tonight. Or should I say this morning? It's 2:30 in the morning, and I've got to be up in 5 hours. Well, I think burgundy, or those kind of colours, I think you really need to know what you're doing. This is one which really looks great, but I often think that the smooth parts on this pipe are a little bit dark, but actually it gives it a certain mystique. You know, when you look at it and spend your time looking at the pipe and admiring it, you really start to get into the grain. I mean, there's obviously reasons why they've gone so dark, and I can see a couple of them right there. But it actually does really look nice when you start to look at it closely. I've got another pipe like that. I wasn't sure if I'd sold it or not. Good night in the tunnel, get some sleep. It's a big day tomorrow, Hoshana Rabbah. This one here is the Boswell Cherry Dog. Excuse me, which surprisingly hasn't sold. I've had it on offer a few times, but I really used to love this pipe, and if I was brave enough I would convert it. Maybe I'll still do it, I don't know. The problem with these shags that you can split them, you can crack them quite easily, but if you look at it, it's got some delicious grain on it. A nice bird's eye on one side, and a nice bit of grain there lapping up the side of the pipe. And I really do like this pipe, it's nice and lightweight, and I'm tempted to try to convert it. I did send it when I first started converting pipes, when I first discovered 9mm, way before I was making pipes. I sent a whole bunch of pipes to Ian Walker at Northern Briars. He must have converted, I would say, probably about 10 pipes for me over a sort of a 6-month period. And I sent him this one, but he sent it back. He said he didn't want to take the risk. And there was a few of his pipes that I sent him back to convert, and he didn't want to do those either, so I had to sell them on. Some of them were stunning, but it's kind of a bit of a regret, some of the pipes that I've had to pass on because they're not 9mm. But hey ho, that's the way it goes in the piping world. If you can't take the disappointments, you just can't smoke a pipe. Better to love and lose than not to have loved at all. I have not had a leather wrapped pipe, no. But Ben has and does. So if you want to know about those, speak to him or speak to Eric, the blue collar pipe smoker. Curious about those, Ben, if you're still on. Is there any difference in the way they smoke, those leather wrapped ones? Do you find that they get hot? Do they breathe? I suppose leather technically would breathe. Speaking of leather, I've actually got a leather apron on order by an artisan leather worker here in the UK, so I hope to get that in the next few weeks. Custom made to a design that I think would help me in my workflow, so I'm looking forward to that. Good evening, Ken. How are you? Thank you for joining. We're just at the tail end, I think, because I need to get some sleep. But we're still here for the moment. I'm on Claude. Everybody's turning up now. A new pipe? The Artful Codger? What heresy is this being discussed on this here channel? Next thing you'll be saying, he's got some small batch Cornell and Deal. That would not do. Right, Ben? Just kidding, just yanking your chain, even though it's a vintage chain. The Grateful Dead. Might sound it being half asleep at 2:30 in the morning, but there you go. Oh, Daniel, that's not a question for Ben. He doesn't know anything about old pipes, really, honestly. No, Daniel, Ben is your best guy to ask about old pipes. There isn't anyone else that I could think of who would answer your question better than Ben. Small batch, 10,000. The more small batches that I've seen, the more I see that they're really just new blends. There's nothing particularly special about the ones that I've tried, to be perfectly honest with you. I've tried 3 or 4 of them. Okay, that's not a whole lot, but there's a debate waiting to happen. Ooh, I wonder where I've seen something like that recently. But the small batches, as I've said in all my videos about this topic, Ben is absolutely right. All of these sort of, a lot of it is merchandising, that's the truth of the matter. And because it's something new, because it's called small batch, it kind of makes it enticing. And if you happen to like those blends, then great, buy them. But I think the culture of kind of feeding that need to have the next greatest and latest, newest thing, I would agree with Ben on that point. That it feeds a materialistic culture, and it feeds a culture of now. I need to have everything now, and I want it now. And I don't want to wait for it to be delivered. I want it now, and I want to be able to show it to everybody and say, look what I've got, you haven't got it, I've got it. And that I fully agree with Ben on all of that. I went through that myself, wanting to get all the latest tobaccos and all the hard to get tobaccos, and I wouldn't say that I wouldn't still get them, but I certainly don't feel any kind of urgency or need to get them. If I can get them, great. Some people have been very kind to me, people in America, and they've sort of been prepared to buy tobacco on my behalf, and that's very nice. But certainly, I don't think that it's something that you have to chase after. What's that, John? What is that, a tobacco you're talking about? Any pipe can smoke as well if you give it some time, except when you get a dodgy Castello like I was talking about earlier. And the person who actually had that $1,750, that $1,750 pipe was actually a very experienced smoker, not just somebody who was trying a brand new pipe and expecting it to smoke like a 5-year-old pipe. He knew what he was doing, but I don't know, people talk about pipes having a certain taste, especially Castellos. People say that they have a really sweet taste. I can't say that I've ever experienced that. What I can say is I've experienced pipes which smoke well almost immediately, and some that don't. I haven't yet had the benefit of having a pipe for 10 or 15 years. I may have some pipes which have been smoked for 10 or 15 years amongst the estate pipes, but I wouldn't really know. No, Daniel, that's a very real concern. That's a very real concern, and that's the risk you take when you buy an estate pipe. The only way that you can avoid that, and even then it's not 100%, but certainly you can go to some way to avoiding it, is to buy a pipe in a shop or at a show, where you can hold it and you can sniff the bowl, and try to get some kind of idea of what's been in there before. But you know, some people, when they restore pipes or they bring them up to condition for sale, they'll recoat the interior, and you won't actually get that ghosting until you smoke it a couple of times. But yeah, Grobnob, I was the same. When I first started smoking, I couldn't take any. I was very snobby about it, and I couldn't take just the thought of it being in somebody else's mouth. I mean, I had no idea what the other person might have been eating or touching or doing at the time with their pipe, and it just grossed me out. But I got over it, and I must say, you know, my estate pipes, I've actually probably got more estate pipes in my rotation than pipes that I've had from new. Actually, I'm not even sure that's true, but I've certainly got a significant amount. I don't know, Ken. I think even if you sanitize pipes, you know, sometimes you can get a pipe which is ghosted and there's nothing you can do to exorcise it. And it's, you could smoke it, but if you have to smoke through, say, a Lakeland and you don't like Lakelands, and you smoke it and you smoke it and you smoke it and it still doesn't get rid of it, it's hard, it's tough. Once you watch one of Ben's videos, there's no going back. I think I described it well when I said it was a nostalgic, romantic web channel. I think it makes us all think back to when times were, inverted commas, better. Perhaps our childhoods, or perhaps, you know, scenes that we've seen in films, in old Hollywood films, that kind of thing. When people were more innocent, as they say. I don't know if that's true, but it's just things that we like to say about things. And when you watch one of Ben's videos, that's what you get. Quality of build of vintage pipes compared to new pipes, it depends on the pipe. You know, you could buy an old Dunhill pipe which, you know, cost a fortune but hasn't been made particularly well, and you can get an LCS pipe which has been made a week ago and it's phenomenal. I think the general consensus is that people prefer the way older pipes were made, and if you look at the collector's market, and they, you know, people go mad about certain eras of pipes. So the old Sheraton pipes pre-transition and all the different names they give to the eras, and the Lane era, and the same with lots of different pipes. They've all got their particular favourite eras when pipes were made, and general consensus is that the older ones were better. The reality of it, I do not know. I just know the pipes that I smoke, if I like them I smoke them, if I don't, I don't. It's that simple. Ennerdale is interesting because I've said this many times on my channel. Ennerdale is the one Lakeland that I can smoke from time to time, because for me it hasn't got a very powerful Lakeland. It's got a lot of aromatic flavour in there, but I get a lot of sort of almond pasty kind of marzipan-y kind of flavour in it, plus some Lakeland, but just not as heavy Lakeland. I can't take a full-on Lakeland. Yeah, Daniel, I mean, it really depends on demand. You know, some pipes have got a demand. You know, if you're going to try and, say, get an old Sixton Everson, you know, you can get a Sixton Everson which is donkey's old and is battered, and it will still sell for $10,000. And you can get a brand new Savinelli for $40 or $50. That's just the way it goes. It's a matter of Supply and demand. Sixten Iversen is no longer with us. Sadly, his son Lars is also no longer with us. So their pipes command a lot of money because they can't be had anymore, new ones. It's just the way it goes. It's a matter of supply and demand. If people had a reputation for making a good pipe, they become very collectible. And the rarer the pipe, even so, for instance, the downhill pipes, if you get some of the Magnum pipes, say from the 20s, from that era, they go for silly money because they're rare. So you can have a particular pipe brand which normally is quite cheap, but some of the brands, some of their sort of branch off qualities, they have certain sort of, like for instance Savinelli. Take Savinelli, they've got the autograph range, and that costs 4 or 5 times the amount of a regular Savinelli because they're high quality. They'll use a rarer briar, a better quality briar. They'll generally be handmade, and so you pay more. Yeah, I tend to call them granny pants, Ken. Granny pants aroma, Lakelands to me. When I get as old as Ben, maybe I'll start to like Lakelands. I think I'm older than you actually, Ben. Oh, fancy that. Thanks, Boner. Actually, speaking of hands, my daughter, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and I keep telling her she could be a hand model. She's got beautiful slender fingers with pristine nails. I keep telling her she could be a hand model. Palm olive? No, I don't actually. Oh, Grobnov, please. Daniel, in terms of favourite brand, no, I think I would agree with Ben on that. For me, there's no such thing. Well, it depends why you're calling it favourite. Is it favourite because you happen to like that carver, or some people collect a certain brand, so obviously that brand will be their favourite. But in terms of the smokability of it, I'm a very eclectic pipe smoker. I've got lots of different favourites, if you like, and if I had the possibility, I would like to. Quite a way long ago, I wanted to really wanted to get at least one pipe from as many artisan carvers that I could support. That was really what I wanted to do. I haven't managed to do that. There's still 2 in particular, or 3 American carvers that I would like to get a pipe from. One of them is Steve Morissette. I just really like the way his pipes look. And the other one, who I probably won't ever get a pipe from, is Dr. Bob Keys, and I would like to get one of his Hawkbill pipes, but he's told me quite categorically that he can't do a 9mm version because of the shape. And I don't remember who the third one was. Maybe Abe Herbor. I like his pipes are interesting, but not convinced that I would buy one of his pipes. I find they're beautiful and stunning, and they remind me of a lot of the Danish pipes. And I do like some of the Danish pipes, but I think after a while, I think initially, like with anything fancy, you really get taken by it. But then after a while, they are very samey in their difference. If that makes any sense, it's almost like every pipe has to be quirky and different shape, and they have to reinvent it every single time, and it becomes, in that respect, very samey. And in some ways, a classic shape, but made with a slight quirk or with a slight identity of the carver. In some ways, I find that to be more appealing nowadays. That wasn't the case in the beginning. In the beginning, hey Jordan, I mentioned you in dispatches a bit earlier on. Nowadays, when I consider myself to be a little bit more matured in my pipe tastes, I tend to really go more for the classic shapes, but with maybe a little bit of a twist, or certainly something which identifies the carver a little bit, and that's not always possible. Yeah, the Bayou Guru, I haven't yet bought one of his pipes. I don't know if he's back to carving yet or not, because he was having some kind of surgery, I think. But I have seen your Lovat art, Ben. I know you really like that pipe. Nearut pipes, I've had a few. I don't have one anymore, do I? 1 second. No, I don't have any at the moment. I sold the Bulldog a couple of months back. Nearut pipes are interesting. I went through a phase where I didn't like them, then I did like them, and now I'm like to me they're like another maker. They're not, I'm not sort of in love with them, and I'm not out of love with them. They're nice enough pipes. I certainly don't want to criticize any kind of pipe maker, but I found their drilling left a bit to be desired. Let's put it that way. Smoked well enough, people make a huge fuss about the internal workings of a pipe, and I'm one of those people. When I make my pipes, I make sure that the drilling is good. But personally, I've got some pipes which smoke phenomenally well, and the drilling is high or it's off. Of course, you want to have all the ingredients in the right place to start with in an ideal world. But if you happen to get an estate pipe where the drilling is a bit off, not the end of the world. Chacom, yeah, great pipes. And my one is a little bit fancier, Ben. You might want to close your eyes. I'm sure you've seen it already. This is my Chacom, a really, really nice pipe. Smokes very, very well. I haven't smoked it in a while, not sure why, but there you go. It's got a lovely grain. I bought this one from Sam at GQ Tobacco's pipe show in Nottingham in 2017, was it? It was 2018, last year, the previous one. I saw it at the pipe show, but I didn't buy it. I called him up the next day and I said, have you still got that pipe? And he said yes. I bought it. I was lucky he still had it. Lovely pipe. I'm going to leave it out. Maybe I'll give it a smoke tomorrow. Well, North Country Fisher, you might want to just pack your bowl accordingly. I drill my pipes at 4mm, which some people would consider to be a little bit wide. But I've had pipes which are slightly narrower than that, and they tend to whistle sometimes, or sometimes they're just not, they're a little bit tight. But if you've got one which is wide open and too wide open, I used to find Jake Hackett pipes to be too wide open for me. But just pack your bowl a little bit tighter and see how it goes. You have to experiment, really. You don't want to pack it too tight. because you'll affect the combustion. But just do it in increments, in small increments, and just pack it just a little bit tighter than you normally would. I haven't watched very much. How is that possible that he bought a pipe and didn't know it wasn't drilled? Come on, seriously. I can't believe that. He would have picked it up. He wouldn't have checked it. He wouldn't have... that doesn't make sense. I've had a few Mecheron pipes over the few years, and I have one left now, which is the Pipe Club of London. I'm not a huge Mecheron smoker, but I do enjoy smoking that one when I do smoke it. The other ones that I've had I've not kept. And this one actually smokes very, very well. It also, for some reason, has a very nice sort of tangy aroma in the bowl after it's smoked, and even now, and I haven't smoked it in months. If I take a briar pipe, which I haven't smoked in a while, and smell it, it won't smell very nice, but this one does. It started to colour up a little bit, taking on a bit of a yellow sort of tinge to it. That's the Pipe Club of London, PCOL. That's the logo, which is very cool that they've carved it really accurately. But that's a pipe which I expect I'll always keep. As I say, I've tried different mediums, I've tried the materials, I've tried mortar, I've tried... I've never smoked an olive wood pipe, actually, but I always come back to briar. Briar is my preferred smoke. I think you get used to how they smoke, and it's just something which you're used to. People just smoke... Bremen pipe smoker smokes pretty much... Probably 99% of the time he smokes Mecherons. People do. That's whatever takes your fancy. I've not smoked anything other than briar and mortar and Mecheron. I don't think I've smoked anything else. Yeah, the classics. I think the straight billiard, really and truly, that's, if anybody asks me, any new pipe smoker asks me what pipe they should get, I always recommend that. It's a classic shape, but not only classic shape, but it's going to give you the best chance of a good smoke because of its shape. So I would say billiard or a Canadian, Liverpool, anything like that. I would advise against the Dublin. I would say anything with straighter walls, or even an apple, slightly thicker walls. I don't generally take my Mecheron pipe out because of that reason. If you drop it, it's gone. So I generally only smoke my Mecheron pipe indoors. That's why they all come with cases, because they're fragile. Yeah, Tim has definitely been into his Mecherons, no question. Yeah, the apple is good, or an author, a prince, that kind of shape. Anything like that is going to be, it should give you the best chance of a decent smoke. It's something like that. There's enough of a length on the shank and stem to give you a little bit of a distance for the smoke to travel to cool. Other shapes you might end up getting a hot bowl to start with, especially a Dublin shape, although I've really started to like them again. But I generally, for a good couple of years, I stayed away from all Dublin pipes because I found that the bottom of the bowl always got hot because it's much thinner. But the last Dublin that I made, I'm actually smoking myself. This one here I've kept for myself, but it's because it's an 18mm bowl drill. There's still a decent amount of meat on the walls, and it smokes really well. Very happy with it. So I've been enjoying the Dublins as well of late. I haven't smoked that Churchwarden because it's not filtered. I have kind of thought that maybe because it's a Churchwarden that it might be smokable, enough of a distance to cool the pipe for some condensation to take place, to lose some of that moisture. But I've not smoked it yet, and I probably never will, to be honest. It seems a bit silly for me to try it on a possibility that it'll be okay, and then it's no longer a new pipe. If I wanted to sell it as a new pipe, I wouldn't be able to do that. I need to devise a better way of arranging my desk. I do try to make it look a little bit attractive, but there's not enough room for pipes. I try not to have them all over my desk because I do work at this desk as well. Good night, Ken. I think that's an excellent juncture at which to say goodnight to everybody. It's been one of the longer sessions. How long have we been going for? 3 hours. That's crazy. Okay. Everybody, thanks very much for joining. Thanks, Chad, Ben, North Country Fisher, Josh, Rich, Ken, John, Daniel, Joe, Tim, Grobnob, Jimmy Tumbaki, Bonapiper, Monclaude, and everybody else. Thank you very much for joining. Jordan, thank you. I wish you all a wonderful rest of the weekend. I shall probably be back on Tuesday night, unless I get a chance to get on at some point tomorrow before the festival restarts, which it does tomorrow evening. But I probably won't have a chance, but maybe. So otherwise, I'll probably see you on some point after Tuesday. Hopefully with a Yabo, if it arrives in time. I'm expecting a pipe along the way, so we'll see what happens. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks for joining. Catch you on the next one.